Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike Green. I'm one of the owners of 1A Auto. I want to help you save time and money repairing and maintaining your vehicle. I'm going to use my 20 plus years experience restoring and repairing cars and trucks like this to show you the correct way to install parts from 1AAuto.com. The right parts installed correctly. That's going to save you time and money. Thank you and enjoy the video.
In this video we'll be replacing the front shocks on this 2001 Chevrolet S10. The procedure for this is basically the same as any rear drive front A-arm suspension vehicle. You're going to need your lug wrench or 19mm socket and handle and 15mm wrench, vice grip pliers, possibly a Sawzall 13mm wrench or socket and handle, penetrating oil, and if you're doing it on something other than an S10, probably the same tools but little different sizes. Okay, on this truck it's got wheel caps. We start by removing those. Generally you don't want to use your impact wrench on these. I'm going to be using an impact wrench, but use your lug wrench or your 19mm socket, and you should be able to just pull them off by hand. And then once you get them all off, the cap will come off. You'll see here I put them right over on the lift so I know where they are. And then you take that last one off and the wheel cap comes off. Now if you're using a lug wrench you'll want to have the car on the ground. I'm using an impact wrench because I have the pleasure of it. But again, just kind of sped through that. Now you're going to take your wheel off. And what we're going to do right here is we're going to lift up that flap, and that's where the shock is, and we're going to spray it with some penetrating oil. And I actually sprayed this before I even started, probably 2 days before as well. Okay, here we're putting on a set of vice grips on the top. It's flattened on the top so you can apply a wrench. I've learned in my experience that wrenches rarely work, especially when things are rusty. I just go right to the vice grips, and I was actually, unbelievably enough, able to start loosening this bolt up, but eventually it stopped moving on me, or moving for me, I should say, and I had to resort to a Sawzall, or reciprocating saw. Now if you're in Texas or Arizona, you probably won't have to do this, but for those of us in the Northeast or wherever, don't be afraid of this. Using Sawzall is not that tough. You can see I put the vice grips on there to kind of hold things in place, and you can see it probably only takes about 15-20 seconds to saw through it. The biggest thing is just make sure you have a Sawzall available. Home Depot rents these, so you can start your project without it, but just have a plan to go and get one. Make sure it's got a new blade on there, and you can see it'll go right through the metal. You can see the vice grips start to fall, and then it pulls right off. Okay, and then I'm just going to reach in there, and there's a washer and rubber grommet. Obviously be careful not to touch where you just sawed because it will probably be hot. Pull those off, and then there are two bolts that hold the shock in from underneath. I'm pointing to the top of one. So you just want to hit these with penetrating oil as well. Just makes everything a little easier to get apart. And so right now I'm just kind of shooting them in the general area. It's kind of hard to even really get them that well, but and now we're underneath, and you can see right there's the two bolts holding the bottom of the shock in. And as you can see, I'm just going to use a little 13mm wrench to start them, just to show you that it's a regular tool. This is a Northeastern car, so you can see that it still comes apart. But pretty soon here I'm going to go in and substitute that wrench for a nice air ratchet just to speed things up. And once you remove those bolts, see I do it carefully, I'm not going to remove them both at the same time. You'll see that the hole in the control arm is shaped so that you kind of pull the shock towards the middle of the car, and then it comes down and out. And now you'll be able to see the shock. And there it is. Do you know your shocks are bad? Alright, this thing I'm just going to push right down on. It gave basically no effort to resist. Now here's the good shock. You can see I'm putting a lot more effort into pushing it down, and then after I push it down it comes back up. That's what a good gas shock should do. Okay, so now we're ready to reinstall. You can see the new shocks actually come with slotted ears, so I'm actually going to, you can put one bolt in. You can just start it in, don't put it in very far. Okay, and now I'm going to put the washer, you notice I'm putting the washer kind of pan side up, and then this is a grommet. You put the large side down and the smaller side goes on top, that goes up into the hole. And then I'm putting the shock up in there. Basically you just kind of, if you can see up the hole you can get it right in, or I just kind of feel it around and pop it up and down a couple times and find the hole. And now you push the shock up in, and I actually kind of did it the wrong way. You push the shock up in there and you get it right on your bolt there, and then you can put the second bolt in. As you can see, the gas shock kind of pushes down against, and I just push it up in there to put the bolt in. And now I'm going to get my air ratchet again, and I'm going to tighten kind of one side at a time. I'm not going to totally tighten up one side and then totally tighten up the other. You just kind of do it and let it go up in there fairly equally. Okay. And then I'm not going to do the final tighten with the air ratchet. You never want to final tighten anything with air tools. You always want to get out your hand tool and feel how tight you're getting it. And with this small wrench, as long as you give a good pull, it's pretty good. Now we're up back at the top. Put that grommet down again, small side down. I kind of pull and wiggle that the shock back and forth just to make sure that the other grommet is up in there. Now put your pan side down, pan washer on there, and now take the larger of the two bolts and you spin it on there. The smaller bolt is to lock it on, and so now I'm going to use a wrench, just tighten that bolt up until the shock starts rotating. You'll see the shaft start rotating, and then I'm going to grab my adjustable wrench and hold that shaft. Now that everything's not rusty, you don't have to worry about having to use the vice grips. You hold that shaft and tighten it up, and then once you got it pretty good and tight, and it doesn't have to be incredibly tight, but give it a good push with that 15mm wrench. And then I'm grabbing the small lock nut and putting it on there, and then I'll hold the shaft again and tighten that nut against the other nut, and that'll basically lock them both on there. Okay, and then once that's done, we can let it pull our tray off and let the flap flip down, and now we're putting the wheel back on. Just gotta find I just kind of look through the lug holes to find the studs, and now I'll speed things up a little bit. You first put the lug nuts on by hand just to make sure they're threaded correctly, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my impact wrench, but I'm just going to get them, I'm not going to tighten them, I'm just putting them on there a little bit, and then I lower the vehicle, and now I use a hand tool to tighten the lug nuts up. You never want to tighten lug nuts with an impact wrench. If you tighten them too much, you run the risk of breaking them, and you don't want them to fail out on the road. Now I'm putting the center cap on. Again, just speeding up in different areas. Again, the caps you put on by hand first. Okay, don't use your impact wrench on these. And then after you put them in by hand, you just tighten them snugly by hand. I'm using the socket in my hand just to tighten them up. Don't want to over tighten. This video was brought to you by www.1aauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Call us toll free 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person. Thank you very much.